Then we'll move on to the next important section that is still under Iman, under the foundations of our faith, and how Allah describes the reasons and the process, the thinking process by which you and I should be believers. So the thing that I skipped, that talking too much about, was صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Like us asking Allah to be on the path of those who He has showered favor upon, those He has favored. For a lot of you, it's important to note, especially because a lot of you are coming up and you're going to high school and you're going to college, and you're meeting people of different religions, right? People that don't believe the same things you do. As a matter of fact, in many of your cases, you're the minority. You're the people that believe in a faith that most of the kids at your school do not believe in, right? And you have good friends that are non-Muslims. That's a fact of life. So sometimes the question arises in your head, well, they're good people too. Is Allah just going to throw everybody in hell? And is our religion the only right religion? Is that really the case? Is like nothing else acceptable? And sometimes these thoughts can come into the mind of a young person and it's okay to have those thoughts. It's, first of all, I want to let you know that it's not a bad thing to have that curiosity. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I had the same curiosity when I was a kid. And I was raised in, my childhood was in Saudi. I was in Riyadh. I was in a Muslim country. I had those thoughts. Like, what about everybody else and what about their religions? And sometimes I'd lie in bed and I think, I wonder if we're the right ones. Like, I'd literally think, I wonder if we're the right ones, So these thoughts do occur, and that's a curiosity that does occur. And part of the answer for that is actually in the Fatiha. صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. The path of those who you showered favor upon. The word sirat, which I translated as path, is actually one of many words in Arabic that you can use for a path. But sirat is used for a path that is the only road that goes somewhere. If you imagine there are two places, let's just say there are two islands, right? And the water is too turbulent, you can't take a boat from one island to another, there's really no other road, there's only one bridge that goes from this island to that island. There is no alternative route possible. There's no other way you can get there. Then that one singular path is called sirat. Sirat has a few qualities. It is a wide path, it is a straight path, it is the only path possible. If you use other words in Arabic like sabil or tariq or fajj is actually a word in Arabic, these words are for roads that you can maybe have an alternative path. You can take another option. Like those of you that have some experience getting stuck in traffic, your GPS can tell you just take a random turn, and the GPS figures out, okay, fine, go another way. Or there's some really annoying, persistent GPSs that say, turn around, when possible, turn around. I said turn around, I said. Turn around already. One of those? Those are amazing. Like, no, I'm not you don't own me. I own you. And then you turn around. But anyway, so the sirat is a path that is singular. That is, there is no plural. It's pretty cool in Arabic that some words, they are structured in a way that actually they don't have a plural for them. Like sabil has a plural, subul, tariq has a plural, turuq or tara'iq. Fajj has a plural, fijaj. It has multiple plurals, meaning a path and paths. Like you put an S at the end, road or roads. But sirat is a kind of strange word of Arabic that actually doesn't even have a plural. No plural exists for it because it doesn't make any sense. Because it's the only road that goes. So you can't have multiples of it. Now from that we learn that actually Allah has revealed one truth. Allah has revealed one truth. There's only one true path. So there's no such thing as multiple truths. There's no such thing. What Allah revealed is what He revealed. And as a matter of fact, people of different religions, our belief is that they were originally taught exactly the same things that we've been taught. You remember some sessions ago I talked to you about the difference between morals and laws, right? So what I want you to know is from Adam alayhi salam all the way to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, all the prophets that have come have actually taught the same exact beliefs and the same exact morals. I'll say that again. What has been the same throughout history for all the prophets? The same exact beliefs and the same exact morals. In other words, who is Allah? What are His qualities? Has always been the same conversation. Whether you ask Isa alayhi salam or Musa alayhi salam or Ibrahim alayhi salam or anybody else, they actually said exactly the same thing. If you ask any of the prophets what the rights of parents are, what should our attitude be towards humility or arrogance or kindness to a neighbor or truthfulness or honesty, these are what kinds of things? Morals. They've always been the same. There's never been any changes in the morals. But societies become more and more complex and more advanced. Maybe way back in history, people lived in villages, and they didn't have major roads and huge governments and, complicated stuff that we have later on in history. So in the beginning, you didn't have the need for advanced kinds of laws. So Allah did not give laws, complex kinds of laws in the beginning. And as nations became more advanced, Allah decided not just to reveal beliefs and morals, but decided also to start revealing what? Laws. And so now the laws that kept coming, one of the most advanced forms of the law was given to Musa alayhi salam. As a matter of fact, some even argue that he was the first one who was technically given a full-fledged set of laws. Like this entire nation is supposed to have a constitution given by Allah. That's what was given to the people of Israel through Musa alayhi salam. And this was important also. There are many reasons for that. One of the reasons is, they were enslaved as a people. They used to live pretty large. They used to live well in Egypt, but there was a coup in Egypt, and one kind of kingdom fell, and another kind of kingdom took over. And when the other kind of kingdom took over, they took the same people that used to have high status and high positions in society, and they turned them into slaves. So they took the Israelites, who used to be governors and billionaires and all this other stuff. They were business people. They turned them all into slaves. Now, eventually, Allah destroyed Fir'aun, the king who was enslaving them, and their entire dynasty. He destroyed them. And now these people are on their own. They're a free nation. But a free nation doesn't, just because you have 100 or 1 million people that are free, doesn't know that they know how to form a government or they have laws already figured out. They've just got across the water and they have some freedom. So if they're a nation by themselves and they need some help, that's when Allah decided to reveal sort of a law for them so they could survive as a nation. Because in the reason for laws also, it's a good opportunity to talk about that. The reason you have to have laws are many. But most important of all, morals are about how you can become better and better and better. When you teach someone morals, that is a way for you to become a better human being. Okay? So you can be better and better to your parents, you can be more and more humble, you can be kinder and kinder to your neighbor. These are all what? Morals. You can be more and more honest at work. You can be more and more sensitive to the needs of others, etc., etc. These are all morals, and the purpose of morals is to improve you. Faith, iman, the beliefs that all the prophets taught is the same way. Your faith, is it supposed to improve and become stronger over time? It's supposed to become strong. It's supposed to enhance. But do the laws improve? Do the laws go up? No. The purpose of laws is entirely different. Remember, faith, belief, and morals, the purpose of them is what? To improve you. The purpose of laws is very important to understand. The purpose of laws is to make sure you don't become a criminal. Make sure you don't become a criminal. In other words, the laws are there to define the bare absolute minimum. You do anything less than this, then you're a criminal. That's the purpose of laws. So laws are designed, if somebody's abiding by the law, that actually doesn't mean they're a good person. Like if somebody's abiding by the law, it's not an indication that they are a good person. They're simply a law-abiding citizen, but that doesn't mean that they are a nice guy. They're a decent human being. No. That just means they're not going to jail. So everybody on the street who's not breaking the law is not necessarily a great person, you understand? They're just abiding by the law. Now the law you can divide into two parts. Things you must do and things you cannot do. Things you must do and things you cannot do. Can you give me an example in Islamic law? Let's leave Islamic law for a second. In governmental law, things you must do. Can you think of something that the law says you have to do? Taxes, that's a good example. What else? Think. I know it hurts, but we have to try and think. I know it's Ramadan, you're hungry. But that's a problem down here. This should be okay. Traffic signs, traffic laws. Sure. What else? Speed limits, traffic signs. What else? Other than traffic and taxes. Think. Licenses for stuff. There are laws for what you can do with your house. There are zoning laws. There are business laws. What kind of business can you open up? There are business laws that make it illegal for you to open up any kind of business you want in any location you want. There are, for zoning laws, for example, there are these, Texas has, mashallah, lots of open land, but you actually can't just buy the land and say, I'm going to build my mansion here, or I'm going to build like a giant slide or something. You can't do that because they could say this, according to the law, this land is zoned commercial. You can only build a hotel here, or you can only build a factory here, or you can only build a house here, or you can only build this or that or the other. So they have laws for that, and you can't break those laws. There are laws about trespassing. There are criminal laws. Can you give me an example of criminal laws that you could break and get in trouble? Stealing, robbing, killing, hurting someone, actually, abuse, Kidnapping, sure, yeah, kidnapping. Okay. I'm a little scared right now, but I'll be fine. Okay. So, now, those are laws. These laws have to do with certain things you absolutely have to do, like paying your taxes, right? That's something you have to do. Or there are laws about things you absolutely cannot do. Islamic laws are the same. Islamic laws are actually about things you absolutely must do to be a citizen of Islam, to be a citizen of this faith. And there are laws about things that you absolutely must not do. So you'll find the laws are actually, even in Islam, the laws aren't something that you read and go, wow, if I do that, I'm a pretty awesome person. Like the law will be, Islamic law will be something like, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُم مِّنْ إِمْلَاقٍ. Don't kill your children because you're afraid of bankruptcy or because of bankruptcy. So somebody doesn't say, by the way, I have obeyed the ayah of Allah. I have not killed any of my children. That's not an accomplishment. You simply didn't break a law. You're not a great person. I mean, I'm not giving any ideas. But you're not a great person for living by that law. Or Allah says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. Don't kill an innocent person. You know what? You may not think I'm a good person, but I live by one ayah. I haven't killed anyone. Yet. So laws are actually, now another way to think about laws is, most people in society, you assume most people are going to try to do the right thing. Well, if most people in society were criminals, we wouldn't have society anymore, right? So most people in society are going to try to do the right thing. But there are some people in society that are a little, they have a tendency to do some weird stuff. So the purpose of laws is to make sure those few people don't destroy life for everybody else. That's the purpose of laws. So the Quran has, or the Musa alayhi salam was given laws because they had people that were living, and if you didn't take care of the crazy element among them, because there might be some murderer in there. If you have a population of 1 million, there's a chance somebody's a murderer in there. Somebody's a psychopath. Somebody's crazy. Somebody's going to do something really bad. So you have to prevent them from being able to do the kinds of crimes that can destroy the rest of society. That is the purpose of laws. That's one of the reasons you have to have laws. So morals aren't enough. And so final way to think about it is actually morals, most morals are actually, or pretty much all morals, are personal. Morals are personal. But technically laws, they have to be enforced by some kind of government. That's the final bit about laws. You cannot have a law unless the police enforces it. Unless there's actually jail time or some kind of penalty or a fee or a fine for breaking it. If you break morals, you just get bad. But you don't get fined, you don't get jailed. Like for example, an example of a moral is to speak nicely. It's a nice moral. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. The Quran says, speak to people nicely, kindly. If somebody's speaking to people in a mean way, can they go to jail for that? No, because it's a moral. But testifying in court and being honest when you're testifying in court is not a moral, it is actually a law. So if you lie in court, can you go to jail for that? Can you go to jail for perjury? Sure, you can go to jail for that. And you can't, when you go to jail, it's not like, hey, you're a bad person, you need to go to jail. You're like, okay, fine, where is it? No, actually, the cops have to come, cuff you up, and haul you away. Right? In other words, there has to be some authority, some force that takes you and hauls you away. You understand? So if you have laws, you cannot really live by those laws as a society. Maybe personally you do. Personally you do. But if there's a law, then that means it comes with punishments for breaking it. In any society, by the way. The moment you're talking about laws, then you have to talk about punishments for breaking those laws. Is that clear to everybody? Okay? Now, as a result of that, every society in the world that has laws in their constitution will also discuss punishments. They have to. What is the punishment for killing someone? Well, some states have the death penalty, and some states have lifelong prison. Isn't that the case? Right? So if you have a law, then law is the preservation of life. You shouldn't kill anybody. But if you do, and if you killed on purpose and there was no just cause or whatever else, if it wasn't some crazy rule like stand your ground, or there's some states where you're standing on somebody's lawn and they could shoot you with their shotgun and they won't go to jail. He was standing on my property. I was defending myself. Okay. That's a crazy law, but whatever. According to their law, the guy didn't do anything wrong. He's fine, So just don't step on people's grass, especially if you're Muslim on Friday. Don't park your car up on there, like we do. But so laws are associated with what? Punishments. This also helps us answer another question. Sometimes the Quran talks about some kinds of punishments that Fox News and other channels love talking about. Islam has some terrible punishments. It's a very barbaric kind of law. Where did the punishments come from? Punishments are there when laws are there. Now, when are laws implemented? To implement laws or to enforce laws, you have to have police. You have to have government. You have to have a court. You have to have an entire giant machinery, right? If you don't have the giant machinery, you can't actually implement the law. So laws, certain laws especially, laws that have to do with everybody, you cannot live by them unless there is some kind of government. In the absence of that government, you cannot actually implement that law. So for example, in the case of the Quran, there's a punishment for killing someone. The punishment for killing someone is called al-qisas. Al-qisas means that you take, if it's proven, first of all you go to court and you prove that this person actually committed murder. If they did commit murder, then you have to turn around and ask the question, or go to the family of the victim and say, what do you want to do? Would you like to A, forgive the murderer, B, sue the murderer and charge him money for what he did, because maybe the one he killed was providing for your family, providing for the family, and now they have no money? So they say, we need to sue him for $2 million or $5 million, whatever it is. Okay? It's called blood money. Or 3, we want to take revenge. We don't care about money, we want to see him hanged, or we want to see him executed. So the family is given 3 options. What are those 3 options again? Forgive the person who killed, and sue or take revenge. Okay? He took a life of one of our family members, we should take his life. But this right to choose between these multiple choices, the court gives it to who? The court gives it to the family. That's a law of Islam. It's in the Quran. That's a law. I think actually it's a pretty incredible law. It's a very beautiful law, because there are a lot of times that people get killed in our society and they go to court and their family's sitting in the courtroom, or no, the family of the victim. And they're sitting there crying because the guy got 10 years or the guy got 15 years or the guy got a life sentence, minimal security, and he's living it like it's in a hotel in prison or whatever, and the family feels like they never got any justice. They didn't have their day in court. Does that happen? Sure. Allah revealed something that would give some peace at least to the family of the victim. Now, that family cannot say, well, Allah says that we have these 3 rights, so forget the court, forget the police, we're going to do a covert military stealth operation ourselves. We are going to sneak into that guy's house, gag him, tie him up, bring him into our home, take him down in the basement, and then ask ourselves, what do we do? Because we're implementing Allah's law. You can't do that. Because the law cannot be implemented unless it's implemented by a government. Even Islamic law. You cannot just implement it yourself. It never happened in history without a government. It just never happened without a government. Now, how do you have an Islamic government? That's a separate conversation. But until you have one, you can actually not use the laws of Islam and take the laws in, they say taking the law in your own hands, right? We cannot take the law in our own hands. Just like you can't take any other law in your own hands, you actually cannot take Islamic law, some aspects of Islamic law, in your own hands. But there are certain, so is that clear to everybody so far? So we've got beliefs, and we've got morals, and we've got laws. Right? We've got beliefs and morals and laws. Now I'll tell you one more thing about laws. Please try and remember it. There are spiritual laws in Islam, there are spiritual laws, and there are social laws. I'll say that again. There are spiritual laws and there are social laws. One of the laws in Islam is you have to fast. What do you think? Is that a spiritual law or a social law? That's a spiritual law. One of the laws in Islam is that you have to pay your inheritance to the right people. Like you have to give a certain percentage to your mom. You write in your will that if I die, this percentage of what I own will go to my mom, this percentage will go to my dad, this percentage will go to the husband, this to my children, etc., etc. Everybody's proportion is actually dictated by Allah's law. Is that a spiritual law or a social law? That's social. So you guys understand that spiritual means it's between me and Allah, and social means it's between me and other people. You understand that? The punishments in Islam, overwhelmingly, you know what they're associated with? Do you think they're associated with spiritual laws? The worldly punishments. Are they associated with spiritual law or social law? They're actually associated with social law. The punishments of Islam are overwhelmingly associated with social laws. Okay? And even though, and social laws, by the way, the vast majority of social laws, you cannot implement them unless you have what? Some kind of government. But fasting is a law of Islam. Praying 5 times a day is a law of Islam. Making Hajj once in your lifetime is a law of Islam. But all of these are what kinds of laws? They're spiritual laws. Can you abide by these spiritual laws without a government too? Yes. And you have to. You can't say, well, there's no government, so I don't pray. Until there's a government, we can't pray 5 times a day in Jama'ah. That's silly. What are you talking about? That's silly. As a matter of fact, these laws started, and by the way, there's a law about halal, what you can eat. Halal foods and haram foods. Is that something you have to live by? Is that, by the way, spiritual? It's absolutely spiritual because that's what you eat yourself. That's what you eat yourself, which means you have to live by it on your own without whether or not there's a government or not that's helping you. You're still responsible to eat the halal. Is that distinction clear? So it's good to kind of make a mental map of the kinds of things Islam is involved in, what kinds of things Islam talks about, the Quran talk about, so that you can become clear about, when the conversation is taking place, what are we actually talking about here? Are we talking about social laws? Are we talking about spiritual laws? Etc., etc. Okay? Now, all of this, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ, the path of those, so the path for us is made up of beliefs, morals, and laws. Beliefs and morals and laws. And which of those 3 things have always been there and always been the same? Beliefs and morals. So actually, especially when it comes to beliefs and morals, we are going to go back and we're going to learn lessons from those people that Allah favored. The people that Allah favored. Now favored, in English, is that a present tense verb or a past tense verb? When I say, those you favored. Past tense. In other words, your role models for what it means to believe and what it means to live by good morals, your role models will always be in the past. Your role models will always be in the past. And the Prophet ﷺ will not be your only role model. He is our role model, but he's not our only role model. Does the Quran talk about other people other than the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Yes. And all of them are our role models? Yes. In what sense? In what sense? In how to believe and how to live by morals. When it comes to the law though, when it comes to the law, the only one we follow is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. His law is the one that is binding on us. But the morals that are taught by other prophets that Allah deemed, and Allah put them in the Quran for a reason. Allah put them in the Quran because those things that He taught us about those previous prophets are absolutely timeless. Which is why you'll find Musa alayhi salam, when it comes to Musa alayhi salam, Allah did not mention pretty much any laws that were given to him. Unless the laws are the same as the ones given to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because we did not need to learn about the laws given to Musa alayhi salam. We already have someone who gives us the law Allah wants us to learn, and that is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What Allah does tell us about Musa alayhi salam is his patience with Bani Israel, is his courage with Fir'aun, his standing up for his faith, the miracles that were given to him, the aid that Allah gave him, things that either help our faith, things that either help our morals. Those are the things we'll learn about Musa alayhi salam. Is that clear to everybody? Now the final comment about this, the final comment about أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ, very important, that actually our true role models are where? Right now or in the past? Yep, our true heroes are in the past. This is very important. I often explain this concept as, you don't ask for career advice from someone who's going to school with you, who's in the same class as you, who knows the same stuff that you do, and is the same age as you. If you want career advice, you would rather go get that advice from someone who's already graduated from school, they've already got a job, they did the same program you're doing, maybe you're studying engineering from this one school, maybe you want to know someone else who already did engineering from that same school. How did they apply for a job? Which professors did they take courses with? How did their career work out for them? What should they focus on? What should you focus on? What should you not focus on? The best kinds of advice will come from someone who's already gone down the entire road and already knows what this road is like. You understand? But if someone's traveling with you, like if somebody's traveling on the road with you, they've never gone down the whole road yet. They may be good company, but they cannot guide you absolutely about what to do and how to do it, because they're just as unaware of what lies in the future as you are. So they may have opinions, but that's just pretty much all they have. Our true role models are going to be in the past. And there's a list of them in the Quran. Who are our true role models? فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Allah says, who are the people Allah favored, again in the past? Prophets, number one. Prophets. They're our first role models. So we look for what the prophets did and said in the Quran to seek inspiration. Then was Siddiqeen. Siddiqeen are people who believed in the prophets no matter how difficult it was. They confirmed, they actually acknowledged that the prophets, what they were saying is actually true. So the first group is prophets. The second group is who? Siddiqeen, the people who believed in prophets at their time. Washuhada, and people who gave their lives for their faith. People who were willing to die just so they could continue to believe. There were sometimes people who hated people who believed so much they were willing to kill them. And they said, you better take your faith back, and you better never talk about your morals again. And if you do, we will kill you. And that was not enough for these people to stop talking about their faith, or standing up for it, or standing up for the right morals. They didn't care. And they were ready to be killed for it. These are the shuhada. The final group is the salihin, good people. They may not have been killed, but they were still great people. They were great fathers, they were great mothers, they were great sons, etc. What is an example of a salih in what we just studied recently? A good person. Luqman would be an example of a salih. Okay. And Allah says about them, وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا, which is a very interesting statement in Surah Al-Ma'idah. He said, and how amazing those people are as company. In other words, in Jannah, when you do follow their way in this life, then in Jannah, you will be given their company. You'll get to hang out with them. You'll get to hang out with all of the prophets, all of the good people, all of the siddiqeen, all of the shuhada, and all of the salihin. So you can sit there and ask them questions about their epic adventures yourself. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward, by Allah's mercy, to enter Jannah and to just I want to hang out with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I really also want to hang out with Musa alayhi salam. Really want to chill with Musa alayhi salam. Because the Quran describes him as really muscular, so I want to see how. Then I want to do a replay of when he punched the guy and he died. And I probably want to watch the actual footage of the staff hitting the ocean and the ocean parting, and him and the Israelites in the hundreds of thousands walking through the middle of the ocean. I'd like to see that. But anyway, that's just my problem, Allah has given us in this life, on a side note, Allah has given us in this life certain things that have made believing easier. We have now the concept of video footage. Something that happened 30 years ago, can you still see it? Because video cameras on it, right? We have the concept of the microchip. which means you can have terabytes of data on a fingertip. It's possible, right? When people were told long ago, everything you do is being recorded. Every one of your actions is being recorded. And it's being stored. And it will be replayed. Isn't that what we're told about Judgment Day? We're told all of the stuff you do is being recorded, is being archived, backed up, and is going to be replayed on Judgment Day. Let's go back to the videotape. Let's just look at what it says. Look at what you did. For people before us, it was really hard to believe. Really, everything's being recorded? How is that possible? How can you relive a moment that already happened? As days come closer, as the world comes closer to its end, what did Allah start showing us? Like in the last 100 years, we've seen things that could not have been imagined by humanity in its entire history. You can actually relive a moment. You can actually watch a video. You can actually store data. Store what someone said. Store their words exactly. And is that used as evidence if there's video footage or audio recording or telephone recording? Is that used as footage or evidence in courtrooms? Oh. And Allah says, you're going to see whatever you did face to face. And it's going to be used as evidence against you. SubhanAllah. So Allah has made believing in what is going to come in Judgment Day, which used to be a matter of the unseen. He's made it so much easier for us to believe. And one of the reasons for that is the advent of modern technology. It's completely believable now. It's actually not even a matter of the unseen, it's a matter of the seen. It's a matter of the seen, subhanAllah. You know, and people think technology should take you away from deen. No, it's the way you look at technology, or look at anything for that matter. The way you look at something can just enforce your faith instead of take it away. Our role models will be where? In the past. And so some of you were wondering, if in case I want to see the footage of what happened with Musa alayhi salam, but that already happened. And there were no cameras back then. Yes, there were no physical cameras. There were no Sonys and Panasonics back then. But in the unseen, Allah has His own recording crew. He has His own recording crew. And we can replay the videotape. Inshallah ta'ala. You know, this is one of the joys of Jannah. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us all His beautiful Jannah. Okay. Now, I'm going to start the next session beyond the Fatiha. And the next section actually has to do with Surah Al-Imran. These are ayat number 190 to 195. And before I tell you about these ayat, I want to tell you a little story about these ayat. The Prophet ﷺ used to receive revelation from different kinds of ways. And one of the ways was sometimes the revelation just came to him directly. Like sometimes it came through an angel and sometimes it came to him directly. Like he wouldn't even notice the angel, he'd just know ayat have come. One time he was sleeping, and he was lying down next to his wife, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. She's the one who tells us this story. He's lying down next to his wife, and all of a sudden, ayat started coming to him. The part of Quran started being revealed to him. So he turned to Aisha radiallahu anha, and he said, if you give me permission, I'd like to go speak to my Lord. Now look at the manners of the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't just get up and go pray. He turned around and asked his wife permission to go. By the way, does a prophet need anyone's permission? A prophet, by definition, a prophet needs nobody's permission. But he's teaching us manners. So she says, of course, go. And then he goes, and he makes wudu, and he starts praying. And when he prayed, he's reciting the Quran a little bit out loud so she can hear also. So he recites the Fatiha. Then he starts reciting some ayat she's never heard before. These are new ayat that just came to him. And these are the ayat that we're going to read. And so he recited these ayat. And by the time he got to these 5 or 6 ayat, he went into ruku'. And he says, as he was reciting them, he started crying. And he cried so much that his entire beard was soaked. And then when he finally went into sajda after reciting these ayat, he stayed in sajda. And he kept crying in sajda until she noticed that there was actually a puddle where he was making sajda. And he wouldn't get up from sajda until Fajr started. And Fajr started, and he has to go lead the prayer at the masjid, the prophetic masjid. And the companions are waiting, the Sahaba are waiting, because the sun's about to come up, and the Prophet hasn't come out of the house. So Bilal radiallahu anhu came, because Bilal used to give the adhan. So he comes and he says, Ya Rasulullah, it's time for prayer. We're waiting for you. And so Bilal radiallahu anhu, the Prophet was so emotionally moved. He finishes his prayer and he tells Bilal radiallahu anhu, how can you call me away from Allah when Allah has given me these ayat? When Allah has given me these. And even this story, the way we learn this story is also beautiful. This story, the Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away, the Sahaba used to miss him. They used to miss him. They used to talk about him. And when you talk about someone who's gone, it moves you emotionally. So they used to come to Aisha radiallahu anha's house, and they used to just say, so can you tell us something amazing about the Prophet? We miss him. They used to go to the mother of the believers, and they used to say, can you tell us something amazing about him? And she used to say, everything about him was amazing. Everything about him was amazing. But I'll tell you one story. And so the way her house was designed, Aisha radiallahu anha's house, that she had a curtain, and the companions would come on one side of the curtain, and they wouldn't see her, and they would say salam to the mother of the believers and say, could you tell us something? And she'd sit on the other side of the curtain, and she'd tell them a story, or she'd tell them something about the Prophet ﷺ. So she was a great teacher to many, many, many companions. So this is how she told them this story. When they asked, tell us something amazing about him that we didn't know, she told this story. SubhanAllah. So, one of the things that makes me realize is that there are lots and lots and lots of stories of the Prophet ﷺ that we don't know, that we will never know until Jannah. Because, they asked her a lot, and she told us a lot. But as much as we asked her, do we know every story of every day? Of every moment? No. We have books of hadith. They're in the thousands. It's beautiful. It's huge. It's still not everything. Actually, there's a lot to do with the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. There are lots of details. There are lots of conversations. There are lots of beautiful moments that we're going to learn about when we sit at Al-Kawthar, at the Hawd, at the river, at that fountain that Allah describes, Inna a'tainaka Al-Kawthar. The Prophet ﷺ has been given a special fountain in Jannah called Al-Kawthar, and he will give his believers special drinks from those, and we're going to sit by him, ﷺ, and we're going to ask him about the stories that we never heard about in Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah and Abi Dawud, the books of hadith. We just never knew. We just never knew. We're going to learn about those stories, inshallah ta'ala, one day. Now, in these ayat, Allah is going to talk to us about what it means for someone what gifts Allah has given them, this mind, this heart, two gifts, the mind and the heart, how this person uses them properly and comes to the realization that in fact there is a God, and that in fact there is a judgment day, and then that in fact they do need guidance from Allah. These three conclusions, I'll say them again: there is a God, there is judgment day, and there is a need for guidance. And Allah is going to describe in these ayat that is a conclusion a person will reach all on their own. They'll just figure this out all on their own. There's no revelation. Without any revelation. This is a person who's just thinking, and they reach this conclusion. Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. No doubt about it. Especially when it comes to the creation of the skies and the earth. And especially when it comes to the fight and the conflict that takes place every day between the night and the day. What is the conflict between night and day? Day is bright, and as the day progresses, darkness starts winning over. Night starts winning little by little by little. The day starts getting a little from bright white, from bright yellow to orange, and then to darker tinges of orange. Then it starts turning blue, and then it starts turning darker blue, and then night finally wins. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا اتَّسَقَ وَمَا وَسَقَ. When the night just becomes completely black, and then that full black night starts losing the battle again, and what happens? It starts getting lighter and lighter and lighter until day starts winning again. And this battle keeps happening every single day between night and day, night and day, night and day. This battle. Allah says, especially when it comes to the creation of the skies and the earth, and especially when it comes to the battle between night and day. In these two things, there are many, many miraculous ayat. Ayat, I'm not going to translate ayat yet. For people who have clean minds. You remember? You don't remember. I talked to the Urdu group about that. What are clean minds? Ulil albab, people who possess pure minds, sound minds. I call them clean minds. The classical definition of clean minds, I need you to understand. This is very important because if you don't understand the last part of this ayah, you won't understand the first part of this ayah. The last part of this ayah is, who are ulul albab? Who are the people of pure minds, clean minds? And if you're not a person of clear mind, then the skies and the earth, and night and day are experienced by everyone or just you and me? Everyone, but they will not benefit from them. And they will see no ayat in them. Because what don't they have? Clear minds, clean minds. They say, like Imam Raghib says, "Al-lubbu aqlun salihun khalisun min ash-shawaibi," that a clear mind is actually a person whose thoughts are not polluted by useless things. A person whose thoughts are not polluted by useless things. A person who thinks about meaningful things. This brain that Allah gave us, this mind that Allah gave us, is actually a very powerful gift. It is extremely capable. You can memorize entire books. You can know incredible amounts of data. There are people, when they put their mind to something, they become incredibly knowledgeable in whatever area they put their mind to. Isn't it true that if you're tuning into like ESPN, there are commentators that can tell you sports statistics from 50 years ago? Off the top of their head? Off the top of their head. They know names of athletes, how long their careers were, which college they went to, who drafted them, where their career began, how many rings they have, when they suffered their injuries, when they came back. My God, that's incredible. They put their minds to it and they were able to learn enormous amounts of data. There are young kids, 12, 13, 14. They start playing an RPG. They start playing a first-person shooter or an RPG or some kind of sim game, or a fighting game, and they can tell you all the cheat codes, all the walkthroughs, all the special combos, X, X, Y, R1, R2, that make dua. Like they could tell you all of that. And do they read that, or could they just tell you? They could just tell you. If you see like any gamer conference, right? Like I'm a big Street Fighter fan. Right? They have, at EVO they have the Street Fighter conference and the tournament. And you have these gamers that have unbelievable amounts of fighting combinations memorized. So if the guy jumps, here's the combination of buttons you're going to use. If he sits down, here's the combination you're going to use. It's it's a thing of wonder. Like how do they know so much? How do they memorize so much? Some of you are obsessed with video games, but you're terrible at them. So you spend a lot of time on YouTube walkthroughs. Whereas this one nerdy dude is like, well, this level is actually pretty easy. You just gotta, and you're like, oh, wait, pause. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, that's where you find the secret orb. There are people who become obsessed with television shows. They know every character, their character name, and their actor name, their actual name. They know their career. They don't have to go to IMDb or something to look up the information on that actor. They know everything already. Everything. How many awards, how many Oscars, how many nominations, how many this, how many that. It's ridiculous how much they know. There are people that are obsessed with fashion. There are people that are obsessed with sports. There are people that are obsessed, some people obsessed with news. Some people obsessed with technology. Which chip just came out? Which processor just came out? Which PC just came out? Some people obsessed with a particular company like Apple. They're just obsessed with it. Or Samsung. They know every product, when it's coming out, what the releases are, what the updates are, what the bugs are, what the fixes are, how do you jailbreak it, how do you do this, how do you do that? The whole nine. Aren't there people like that? This mind is an incredible thing. When you put your mind to something, you could just do amazing things. I knew this one kid I knew in Long Island, don't ask. Not going to name him. He got in a lot of trouble, actually. He used to say, hey, just give me your PS3, I'll jailbreak it for you and download 1,000 games on it. Yeah, and I'll just charge you $300. He got arrested. And he was like 14. He made a lot of money. The entire neighborhood's kids' PS3s had 1,000 games on them, on their hard drive. He's super smart, but he put his talents to evil genius, and it's what he used his mind for, So Allah is now telling us that there are people who think about all this, and then there are a few people in the world, few people in the world that have pure minds, that instead of getting distracted with one thing and then taking this incredibly powerful mind and putting all of its muscle in this some useless thing like sports statistics or video game data or movies or TV shows or series or episodes or whatever else, instead of putting their mind on that, they put their mind and they actually think about what you and I would never even consider. They stop and think about what? The skies and the earth and how they were actually created. And they start thinking about how there's an actual conflict between night and day. What? Who thinks about the sky? You ask your friend and you are going on a road trip, what you thinking about? The sky? You're weird. You are weird. I am no longer having a conversation with you. You're saying this in your head, like this is going to be a long road trip. This person is thinking about the sky. One of your friends just says on an airplane, on a flight, have you just ever thought about how day turns into night? Let's put the headphones back on, play. If your friend talked to you about, have you ever thought about whether or not they'll ever get off the island? Be like, yes, I have thought about that a lot, actually. What if there is no island? And you'll have a deep conversation. Because we have become accustomed to exhausting our minds into useful or useless things. Useless things. So in the course of this first ayah's conversation, I want to share with you what happens when someone actually thinks about the skies and the earth. What does that even mean? What happens when someone thinks about the night and the day? Allah says, for example, in the Quran about the sky. One of the things when you notice about the sky is wind. Right? When you go out in the open sky, you'll experience wind. Winds are a means by which clouds travel. Winds are also a means by which dust travels. Winds are also a means by which pollen travels. Clouds bring what? Rain. Pollen is what germinates the earth, and what comes as a result? Plants come as a result. And these plants need water. And the water comes from the clouds, and the clouds are delivered by the wind. So the breeze that you're feeling is actually a delivery system for life on this planet. Like life is supported, one of the ways that it's supported is just the breeze that you're feeling. Without the breeze, you actually wouldn't be able to experience life. Because the plants that need to receive the pollen wouldn't. Which means plants wouldn't come out. Which means animals wouldn't have something to eat. And if the clouds didn't come, even if the plants got germinated, there's nothing that can allow them to grow. Because there's simply not enough water to garden all of that. We mow our lawns and we water our lawns, especially in Texas, because it's really dry and stuff. But look outside and look at how far and wide the grass goes. Who's watering that grass? Well, that's being delivered. That's not us. That's just being delivered. And then these plants, especially these trees, they are being watered, and these trees inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen, which you and I are breathing. And all of this is because of the wind. All of this. That's something someone can seriously think about and just be lost in wonder. How is everything working with everything else? It seems as though the winds have this very cooperative relationship with the clouds and pollen, and the sky that rains has a pretty cooperative relationship with the earth. They're working together to produce life. Because if you have companies and organizations and people that kind of work on their own. They don't feel the need to work with each other. But if you look around, it seems as though all creation, in one way or another, is actually working with each other, and it produces a higher purpose. You start thinking about the night and day. Does night have a purpose? Does day have a purpose? Does night have... do we need night? Do we need day? Yeah. Are there places where the day lasts 6 months and night lasts 6 months? And those places have special kinds of problems. They have special kinds of not just biological problems, they have special kinds of psychological problems, emotional problems. You start thinking about sunlight. There is now research about places that don't get a lot of sunlight and the higher rates of suicide and depression in those places. Sunlight has to do with your emotional state. Whoa. There are, so when you start thinking about the sky and you start thinking about the earth, you realize that actually you personally have a relationship with the sky and the earth. You personally have a relationship with night and day. You are not independent of these things, you are dependent on them. And in some way or the other, now think about this a little further. Human beings are the dominant species on this planet. Is that not true? We are the dominant species on this planet. Pretty much all the other species, everything else, in some way or the other, is being utilized by who? By us. The resources of the earth are being utilized by us. We're drilling for oil and gas or for minerals. The animals of this earth, we're either milking them or eating them or using their hide. The plants on this earth, we are using them to draw all kinds of chemicals and nutrients or even barks of tree being used for our construction. The stones of this earth are being used for our construction or for other matters. Even the silicone of this earth is being used for our technologies. The metals of this earth are providing us electricity and copper and all this other stuff. Pretty much everything on this earth, in one way or the other, we figured out how to use it to serve who? Ourselves. But the fact that we learned how to use it to serve ourselves makes you wonder, did I actually invent copper? I may have invented copper fiber, but did I invent copper? I may have invented a table, but did I invent wood? Everything that I needed to advance whatever advancements I as a human being made, any advancements I made, the raw materials for it were already here, weren't they? A kid can take credit for building an amazing Legos thingy. But what can't he take credit for? The pieces. You were provided certain pieces to work with. Who provided those pieces? And how come these pieces fit so well together? You see the masterpiece of Legos, it's not just the genius of the child who put it together, but it's actually the genius of the designer who designed these pieces that can work so well with each other and build something, isn't it? When you start thinking like that, then you start developing a different kind of appreciation for your maker. And this kind of thinking makes you realize that everything is valuable. Now let me tell you what ayah means, so we can conclude this discussion. What does ayah mean? Ayah means lots of things. Ayah includes the meanings of something valuable. خَرَجَ الْقَوْمُ بِآيَتِهِمْ. Ayah is something valuable. Ayah is something that has purpose and meaning. This is why the word in Arabic, literally means I-E, meaning. Comes from the same origin. In Arabic means, its same origin as ayah, actually means something that separates or distinguishes from something else. Meaning every ayah is distinct. Every ayah has meaning and every ayah has value. The word ayah also means, among its other meanings, is a sign. A sign is something that points to something else. The wind is a sign that life is being delivered. Life is being delivered is a sign that I'm being taken care of. My life is being taken care of. Which is a sign that I am actually not my own caretaker. Somebody's providing for me. One sign leads to another sign, leads to another sign. Something is pointing to something, which is pointing to something else, which is pointing to something else. That's part of the meaning of ayah. It's part of the meaning of ayah. We'll have a full discussion on ayah later on. But I wanted to just share a couple of these things with you. Why? Because Allah is saying in the skies and the earth, and night and day especially, there are ayat. There's something valuable. There's something meaningful. There's some kind of a lesson. There's some kind of a reminder. There's some kind of an indication. There's some kind of a clue. For what kind of people? For people of clear minds. But if people's minds are filled with sports statistics and junk and trivia information and just useless facts, if they're just filled with that, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see the bigger picture. They're going to be lost in the little details and not going to appreciate what's happening. Last comment, and you got your break. There's someone who is obsessed with this paper. It's a pretty shiny paper. There's some red here, there's some pink here, some black here. They're focused on what? Paper. Does this paper have something written on it? Does this paper have something written on it? It does? And what's written on it, does it have value? It does. Am I focused on the wrong thing when I say the paper, the shine, the ink? Am I focused on the wrong thing? Is there something far more important I should have been focused on? That's the difference between people who can appreciate an ayah and people who can't appreciate an ayah. They're looking at the same thing, but they're focused on the wrong thing. They don't see what it's actually saying. They know so much about it. There's a guy who studies paper who can hold the Quran and say, this comes from a particular kind of tree, and it's this density. And these are the kinds of factories that make it. I can tell this is this many years old. He can tell me so much about this paper. But is that knowledge of paper? Which is cool knowledge, by the way. Hey, it's cool knowledge. It's probably on NPR one day. The paper guy. Right? But did that help him actually get anything out of this actual page of guidance? No. People are like that. There are people who don't have clean minds. They have amazing minds. It took a lot of knowledge to understand paper. But you focused on the wrong thing. The people of clean minds, they're not just smart. They just learn to focus on the right thing. That's the key to the whole discussion. They're going to focus on the right thing. You're going to meet a lot of smart people in life. In college, you're going to meet a lot of smart people. Your professors are going to be very smart people. The problem won't be that they're not smart. The problem will be they're focused on the wrong thing. And if you hang out with those kinds of people long enough, guess what happens to you? You start focusing on the wrong thing. And you get used to focusing on the wrong thing so much that when you actually talk to someone who's focused on the right thing, it just feels weird. It just feels out of place. Like the friend of yours who says, I was thinking about the sky. Just twisted. Why aren't you thinking about a movie? Why aren't you thinking about food? Why are you thinking about the sky? So we're going to do this passage and we're going to try to understand what does it mean to become people of lub. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. ثم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. So we're talking about people of clean minds. A few things that I have to tell you about clean minds more, and then inshallah tell you one more thing about the ayat in the Quran, and an exercise that you guys are going to do on your own, and then you're going to share what you discovered with me tomorrow, inshallah. So what I want to share with you about ulul albab, I told you that we focused our minds on the wrong things. And the analogy I often like to give is of the consumption of junk food. Right? If you eat a lot of junk food and then you throw in an apple or two every once in a while, it's actually not necessarily a healthy diet. Nor are you going to see the positive effects of a fruit once a year just because your digestion is overwhelmed with foods that are no good for you. You understand? So what happens is if you're constantly taking in useless information, you're exposing yourself to what isn't beneficial. And then every once in a while, or every day even, you're stuck in a lecture like this one, where you're hopefully maybe learning something positive, something beneficial, then you're not going to necessarily see positive results. Like you'll, in one ear, out the other. Why? Because your mind is still focused on what? The wrong thing. I asked you guys, for example, to take your cell phones away and mobile devices away because some of you are so obsessed and you are so addicted, unfortunately, to your devices that you actually can't even help yourselves. You're no longer in control, which is a sad state of affairs. You see, Allah dignified human beings with this incredible faculty. This is an incredible gift. It is capable of amazing things. And when this incredible gift is being used to do dungu dungu dungu, and that's all it's being used for, that's a tragedy of the human mind. What a waste of just amazing gift that human beings were given. So you have to, even if you can't give up entertainment or video games or whatever it is, if you can't give it up, at least cut it down significantly so you can actually use your mind for what it was created for, something higher, something more, you know. Another comment that may be a little hurtful, but I think it's important because I personally do feel the effects of it, is that, you know, Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, was an incredibly oppressive human being. He decided that he does not want a generation of young men to rise in Egypt, of the Israelites, because too many of them will create ruckus and they will stand up against the tyranny of the king. So he needed to control the population of young men. So he would kill, every other year he'd kill all the baby boys. That was his policy. Kill all the baby boys every other year. Now the question arises, why not every year? Well, because he still needs some population to be his future slaves. So he doesn't want to get rid of all the men, but he wants to keep the population down because too many young men, and you might have a revolution on your hands, right? Nowadays, you don't actually have to kill babies every other year to keep the population of men from becoming too high. You can just keep them from ever turning into men. You can just keep them as boys by just handing them an iPad and an iPad mini and a, PS whatever, just when they're like 3 years old. And they'll hold on to that sucker until they're like 25 and sitting on their couch playing video games all day, watching movies all day, and not getting a job, not taking their college life seriously, not taking their career seriously, not taking their religion seriously, not taking anything in life seriously. I've actually seen cases like this. Parents have come up to me and said, listen, you need to talk to our son. He's 27 years old. He stays home all day. He yells at his mother. He watches video games and movies. That's all he does. He's dropped out of school. He's doing nothing with his life. This is a new phenomenon. And he's not motivated to do anything. You don't have to kill that kind of a boy. He's not a threat to any injustice in society. He's not going to be a contributor. He's not going to speak out against any kind of wrong in society. He's as good as he's about as mobile as the furniture he's sitting on. It's a waste of space. What a waste of talent. What a waste of talent. The young generation has to realize the power it possesses. And the young generation also has to realize the danger it's in. The danger you guys are in is because we are living in times where entertainment is so widely accessible and so infinite. There is no end. Your lifetime will end and the number of movies will not. Your lifetime will end and the number of video games will not. You will never have played all of them. Never. There's still going to be more. Which means you can spend your entire life wasted away in this. And that your life will amount to nothing. This is why being from the ulul albab is so important. Now, thinking is an intellectual thing, right? But actually, the ulul albab are described with two parts. And this is the next lesson here that I want you to understand. The Quran is concerned with your mind, and the Quran is concerned with your heart. I'll say that again. The Quran is concerned with your mind, and the Quran is concerned with your heart. What are some things that the mind does? Can you tell me? Sure, the mind thinks. What else can the mind do? Process information, sure. Reach a conclusion, analyze. Tells your body what to do. What else? Store, remember, memorize. Can it do that? Sure. Recall. Okay. Learn new things. Can it do that? So there's a lot of things that the brain does, that the mind does, right? It remembers, it thinks, it stores, it analyzes, it learns, it adapts, etc., etc., etc. Okay. According to the Quran, what does the heart do? Not the physical heart. We're not talking about the heart that's beating inside you, that heart physically just pumps blood, physically. But in the unseen sense, and this is important again, we were made up of two parts, right? There's the seen part of us and there's the unseen part of us. Similarly, there's the seen part of our heart. There's a seen heart and there is an unseen heart. So now I'm going to talk to you about the unseen heart. Okay? We're talking about the mind, and now we're going to talk about the unseen heart. The unseen heart does a few things in the Quran. One, it actually remembers. It remembers. The heart also cares, loves, hates, fears. The heart gets excited. The heart gets motivated. What am I trying to say then? According to the Quran, the heart is the place of all the emotions. All the emotions are associated with the heart. Okay? In a spiritual sense. Not in a neurological sense, in a spiritual sense. Okay. The Quran's argument is that it wants to appeal to your mind. How do you appeal to someone's mind? How do you impress someone's mind? No, how do you impress someone's mind? You still haven't heard the answer. Good. Logic, reason, evidence, proof. Something convincing. You can give a really emotional speech and be wrong altogether. You can be really fired up, like Rush Limbaugh. But, you might as well put your foot in your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about. Right? So you can have situations where people are very emotional, they're appealing to people's hearts, but there is no appeal to the mind. If you want to impress the mind, you have to be reasonable, you have to provide good evidence, you have to be sound, etc. How do you appeal to the heart? Emotion. Anger, love, care. I mean, when your mom, gives you a hug and says, "Beta, I love you," just be nicer to your dad. She's not being rational. She's just being what? Emotional. And that works. Meaning human beings aren't just impressed or motivated or convinced by reason, they're also convinced by emotion. They're convinced by emotion. We are spiritual, emotional creatures, and we're also reasonable, intellectual, rational creatures. And we're not just purely one or the other. We're not. We're not robots. And the example I like to give to help you understand the distinction between the heart and the mind is the example of a young man who likes to smoke. A young man who likes to smoke who's very smart. He gets like 100 in biology. And if he gets 100 in biology, you know that he knows that smoking is pretty bad. Actually, he understands that better than most people because he's seen the pictures of like deformed lungs, and he knows exactly what it does physiologically to you, how many minutes it takes off your life, and all of this other stuff. And yet, after getting 100 on the same test, on the biology of the lungs, what does he do outside the class? He smokes. You have to ask this young man, why do you smoke? What's the reason you're smoking? And what does he say? It's interesting answers. You know what they say? I don't know. Feels good. But don't you know it's harmful? Yeah, but it's whatever. Is that an intellectual response? Is that a reasonable scientific answer? No. What is that? It's emotional. Feels good. My friends do it. Feels cool. I think I look extra attractive when I smoke. Perhaps that's what it is. Because when people pass by me and almost puke, I think that's a sign of real manhood or something. Something's going on in his head. Now that same kid who, even though, the Surgeon General's warning on the side of the cigarette pack was not enough for him to stop smoking, that same kid goes home and goes upstairs to his room and closes the door and he's smoking. And he sees his dad pull up in the driveway. What does he do? Takes out the cigarette, flushes it down the toilet, air freshener, mint. The Surgeon General said you'll get cancer, and that wasn't enough. But the father pulled up into the driveway, and that was enough. The father hasn't even said anything yet. Nothing. What drove him to change his behavior? So reason wasn't enough, but fear was. Sometimes we are motivated not by evidence, not by reason, but by emotion. You understand? Sometimes you can know something is wrong and do it anyway, because the emotion is too strong. Remember that girl I told you about who sneaks out of the masjid to meet her boyfriend? Did I tell you about that? No? Well, I should tell you now. Some girl be coming to the masjid, dad's up there in Taraweeh, and she's in the back section, so she doesn't know that she's, she sneaks out the masjid, walks down the parking lot over to the pharmacy, and she'd be sitting in the car with some dude for like an hour, and she goes, oh, they're almost done praying. She sneaks right back, goes into Taraweeh. Yep. And you know what? If I knock on that window, what do you think you're doing? First of all, she might say, and he might say, mind your own business, get lost. But if she does feel some guilt, I know it's wrong, but I love him. I know it's wrong, but I can't help myself. So, was reason enough? No. Her emotions have taken over. Her emotions are driving her. The Quran recognizes that you cannot only change your life through reason. Your heart needs to be won over too. Two parts of you. When I told you people think about the skies and the earth and night and day, maybe you thought that they're just using their what? Their mind. Quran says even if you use your mind, it's not enough. Even if you're super philosophical, that's not enough. Your heart needs to be cleansed. Your heart needs help too. So now, with that background in mind, read these ayat. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Who are these people of clean minds? They remember Allah standing, sitting, and on their sides. Remembering Allah, according to the Quran, dhikr, remembering Allah is an action of the heart. So they remember Allah standing, sitting, and on their sides, which means they do something that helps make their hearts stronger. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And they think deeply and they think a lot about the creation of the skies and the earth. Thinking is an action of the mind. So half the ayah is about the heart and the other half is about the mind. And you need to work on both. Now here you have to understand the problem of history. In history, the two nations that we talked about in Fatiha, Al-Maghdub alayhim and Ad-Dallin. There was a nation who was super smart. They were super smart. But Allah says their hearts became hard. Who were they? Bani Israel, the Israelites. They were extremely intelligent, very knowledgeable, but the hearts had become hard. So the hearts were void of the remembrance of Allah. On the other hand, you had people whose hearts are really soft. They cry all the time. They're so emotional and so loving and so caring, but they close the doors to thinking. They just can't think. Allah says in this ayah, people of sound minds are actually people who remember Allah. Remembering Allah is what again? The heart. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And they think deeply about the creation of the skies and the earth. Both of those things work hand in hand. So when someone comes around and says, well, I think about the skies and the earth, but I don't feel any I don't feel any gratitude. I don't feel like I owe anybody anything. Well, yes, because you're using your mind, but you still haven't exercised anything in your heart. Quran says you're made up of both. You are not purely a rational creature. You are not purely an emotional creature. You are a perfect combination of both. As a matter of fact, which one was given priority in the ayat? What do you think? The heart is. Because what's mentioned first? Them remembering Allah. And when we started the Quran, when we started Fatiha, what were the first words? Alhamdulillah, praising and showing gratitude. Is that a matter of the mind or the heart? That's an emotional thing. You feel appreciative towards someone. You thank someone. Allah is saying the heart comes first. Which is why the Quran says that on Judgment Day, successful people will come before Allah not with a clean mind, but rather with a clean, sound heart. That comes first. So now, we have to understand that you and I, we have to work on what we love and what we hate. The heart is about what you love and what you hate. What you're afraid of and what you're not afraid of. You know? This is the connection we have to build with Allah. People who remember Allah all the time recognize His presence. And once they recognize His presence, they don't care about anybody else or any pressure about anybody else. If somebody's pushing them to do the wrong thing, it doesn't matter to them because they recognize Allah's presence. You feel strengthened when you know someone's there for you. You don't feel weak anymore. You don't feel on your own anymore. I didn't know much about the religion when I was first kind of turning back towards Islam. I didn't know much. And I thought one of the most important things in Islam is that you should wear a kufi. Like the most important thing, because you should have a topi on your head. I didn't know, but I thought like if you really want to like show Muslim identity, then wear a kufi. I'm not giving you a fatwa on whether or not to wear a kufi. I'm just telling you a story about myself. And I used to go to high school, and then I was a freshman in college, and my commute on the train was about an hour long. From the bus, then the subway, and then to college. And up until then, I have spent a lot of my energy trying to fit in. Just blend into the crowd. And now I'm turning towards Deen, and I'm like, I should look Muslim. Who am I afraid of? I believe in Allah. He's with me all the time. I don't care. Before then, I would never, ever, ever have put a kufi on. No, never in my wildest dreams I would have put a kufi on. If I put a kufi on, when would that have been? When you're inside the masjid, and as soon as you come out, what would I have done? Taken it off. I'm not saying you have to or don't have to. That's not the point. The point is, to me, it was a symbol of my declaration that I'm Muslim, y'all. So I'm in the subway. I still remember this. I'm in the subway. I'm standing there. There's a kufi in my pocket. I'm going, do it, just do it. You can do this. Does anybody else in the subway care? No. But in my mind, this is a huge battle of like, what are people are going to be like, what? A Muslim? They're going to think you're crazy? People are going to jump off the train? Somebody's going to report me. I'm going to get arrested. I'll be in jail for the rest of my life. Like there's a whole story playing in my head. I was like, forget it. Allahu Akbar. And I put this thing on. And that hour train ride, I feel like a superhero. Honest to God. I feel like, yep. That's right. I feel so empowered. And even though looking back is one of the silliest things I ever did, it's also, I think personally, for myself personally, one of the most spiritual moments in my life. Why? Because I went through a process where I decided to tell myself that I will no longer be afraid of people, and I'm just going to stand up for what I believe. It's an act of courage. Maybe that's the same internal conflict a girl goes through when she's thinking about wearing hijab in school. Maybe it's the same battle she goes through. People are going to know I'm Muslim. What are they going to say? Should I do it or not? Should I do it or not? Should I do it or not? And there's this battle inside. When people remember Allah a lot, you know what happens? You're not alone anymore. You're not walking down the hall by yourself. You have the ma'iyah of Allah. هُوَ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْكُم مِّنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. Whoa. Inna Allah, la takhaf, inna Allah ma'ana. Don't be afraid, Allah is with us. Allah is with us, and you start really, really believing it. Now, in your head, you believe in God, but when you're in your heart, you start feeling Allah is right there. It's something else. You understand the difference? You could, in your head, anybody can say, I believe in a God. But in your heart, to be emotionally attached to the idea that Allah Azza wa Jal, His support, His love, His protection is with you. You're not alone. That's something else. It's just something else. So now, in these ayat, the heart comes first. And once the heart comes, then you will put your mind in the right direction. If your heart hasn't been conquered yet, your mind will work in the wrong direction. As a matter of fact, the Quranic theory that I think, that I've drawn, at least, Allahu A'lam, but it seems to be, and it only gets reinforced the more I study, is that your heart actually decides which direction your mind should be focused. For example, your heart decides that you want to be a doctor. You want to be a doctor. That's not rational. That is a desire. Now you're going to study what? Medicine. You're going to exhaust your mind studying medicine, but the motivation behind it is what your heart decided. Your heart decided you want to make your dad proud, you want to be a doctor, you want to make a lot of money, or you want to heal people. Whatever your motivation was, hopefully it wasn't that you wanted to make a lot of money, because if you became a doctor to make a lot of money, and I hope I'm never your patient. Because I walk in and you just see like a dollar bill walk in. And this one's already in the pocket, so you're just waiting for the next dollar bill to walk in. So you just shoot me with something. Next. You're not looking at a human being anymore. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is you're going to study hard for what you desire. Your mind will be exhausted in what you desire. There are people, for example, who hate studying, but they love working out. They love nutrition. They want to look like a certain way. In order to look a certain way, you have to learn something about nutrition, something about exercise, something about good habits, etc. So even they who hate studying, especially biology, will actually study some aspects of physiology, what the best time is to do push-ups, or what do you eat, and how much proteins, and how much carbs, and how much this, and how much that. Even they will learn that stuff. Why? Because of their desire to look good, or their desire to get ripped, or whatever it is. They'll do it. In other words, your heart picks a direction, and then your mind focuses. That's why the heart is first. The heart is first. Okay? A lot of you, for example, are very intelligent, but you haven't picked a major. Very smart. 2 years have gone by. What's your major? I don't know. I was thinking about accounting or something. Then I'm like, I don't know. All the accountants I know are so socially awkward. So I was wondering maybe criminology. I told that to my mom, but she thought I want to become a criminal, so I decided that's not going to work. So undecided. And you know why you're undecided? Not because you're not intelligent, because you're not sure what you want. That's in here. Once you have clarity about what you want, everything else becomes clear. This is why qalb first, heart first, dhikr first, and then thinking about the skies and the earth second. So now, remember I told you people are thinking about all kinds of things, video games, movies, whatever. And there are some people who are thinking about the skies and the earth and the night and the day. Right, remember I told you about that? Well, what kind of people are going to be thinking about the skies and the earth? The people whose hearts are engaged in the remembrance of Allah. Now the epic part here. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. These people think about the skies and the earth. They haven't even met a prophet. They're not even Muslim. They're just thinking about the skies and the earth, and they're trying to remember God. There's something inside them that says there's a God, and they're remembering Him, and they're trying to thank Him, and they're thinking about the creations around them, and they reach a conclusion, and that conclusion is رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. You did not create all of this without purpose. There's no way. There's no way all of this is useless. There's no way all of this doesn't have a meaning. When something has meaning, what is it called? What's the Arabic word? When something has meaning and purpose and value, what is it called? Ayah. So this guy realizes on his own that everything around him is an ayah. Subhanallah. This has to have some meaning. This has to have some purpose. This did not just come here for no reason. I am not just here for no reason. I am way too intricate. I am way too involved. I have way too many gifts. I am way too advanced a creation to just be an accident. There has to be something. There's no way I can accept that there isn't a purpose. مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. You did not create any of this without purpose. I'm going to give you a really hard lesson now. Try to keep up with me. If you don't understand it, ask me, okay? There are lots of lessons Allah wants to teach us. Different kinds of lessons. Lessons about kindness. Lessons about patience. Lessons about gratitude. Different kinds of lessons, right? One of the most amazing things about the Quran is actually Allah uses nature to teach us those lessons. So Allah teaches us different kinds of lessons like patience and gratitude and fairness and kindness, whatever those morals are, moral teachings. Allah uses what to teach us moral lessons? Nature. What were the two aspects of teachings of Islam that have always been the same? Morals and Beliefs. Allah will use the mountain, the tree, the bird, the camel to reinforce your morals and reinforce your beliefs. Instead of, like, the Quran can help you with your morals and your beliefs, and it's there to do that. But the Quran will teach you that it's not the only one that will help you with your morals and your beliefs. Actually, the world around you can help you with your morals and your beliefs. Now, I've been trying to think about this and trying to internalize that for myself for a long time. So I'll tell you how I do this, just so you understand what I'm trying to get at. Remember I talked to you about video footage and hard drives? I think about that, and I can think about that and make that something that reinforces my beliefs. How? The idea of video footage, what did I correlate that with? Day of Judgment and what it's going to be shown, right? Like some of you are thinking, how did you think about that? Where did you think about that from? You know why I think about that like that? Because I've been trying to train myself to understand that everything around me somehow is a lesson. Somehow everything around me is a lesson. And where did I get that idea from, that somehow everything around me is a lesson, is something valuable? The creation of the entire skies and the earth has what in them? Ayat in them, remember? They have ayat in them, something valuable in them, something to learn in them. Then I've been fortunate enough to be in the company of people that think like that are very profound thinkers. They see the world around them and they realize some stuff. They think about some stuff. Like when you're playing sports. When you're playing sports, there are teams that are rooting for one team, and there are other teams that are rooting for another team. And the most important thing for one team at the time is to win. And when they win, maybe not at the professional level when there's money involved and all this other stuff, but when you're playing basketball or you're playing soccer, or you're playing whatever, and you win, what do you actually win? What do you actually win? Like, what did you get? Just think about that. Anything tangible you can take back and show your mom, this is what I won? Other than a sense of accomplishment, was there anything else? No. There wasn't anything else. Somebody recently had an interesting theory about sports. I'm actually compelled by the theory. Games and sports. Why do people love games? Why do people love sports? In a game, there are certain rules. Any game has certain rules. If you become good at, using those rules, and within those rules, if you abide by them, then you will succeed. Like basketball has fundamentals. If you get good at the fundamentals, you will succeed. Then you can add your own creativity above and beyond that, right? A video game has certain fundamentals. Once you learn the basic moves, then you can advance and do more creative things, and you can succeed in the game. So if you follow the rules, that you will gain points, trophies. And by the way, somebody back there is a genius. They created this trophy system, right, in video games. So you can earn a number of trophies, or you can have a 100% synchronization, or you can have like this idea of if you fulfill all of these submissions and side missions, eventually you can get 100%, and then you get an extra download pack or this or that or the other. Meaning they give you a sense of accomplishment when you stay within these certain rules and you accomplish these and these things. Why are people obsessed with trophies? Are trophies worth any money on video games? Is 100% synchronization gonna make your couch more comfortable, or is anything actually going to happen to you? No. Why is it that we become so interested? It's an interesting psychology. And the psychology behind it that is offered is that in this life, and this is actually offered by non-believers, so listen to this carefully. In this life, there are no set rules. In other words, somebody works hard and they still don't win. Does that happen? And somebody doesn't work hard and they win the lottery. Does that happen? So it seems like this life is unfair. And even if you play by the rules, you won't necessarily get a trophy or points. And it doesn't feel good to work hard and not get something. So we love to turn towards a mechanism, a world in which there are set rules. And if you just abide by these rules, you will definitely get points. You expect those points to come so long as you can do exactly what the rules say. Does that work outside of a game? If you just study hard and go to school, you'll definitely get a job. You'll definitely do so well. You'll definitely have Is anything definite? No. So human beings like certainty. Human beings, in our conscience, we love having certainty. So we love games because games give us what? Certainty. If I do this, I will definitely win. I will definitely be ranked higher. I will definitely have more and more and more. So we hate the idea that we don't have certainty and no guarantees in this life, so we love to immerse ourselves in a world that does give us some guarantees. It does give us guarantees. Amazing, isn't it? But that's from a disbeliever's perspective. You know what's even more amazing? That from a believer's perspective, there are guarantees in this world. Everything you do will be compensated. You are getting trophies. You are getting points. You are getting a rank. Nothing is going unpaid, unrewarded. There is a point system. There is. And you're in this game of life. It is pretty amazing that the Quran says this life is nothing but a game. إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ. Worldly life is nothing but a game. Whoa. And in a game, what do you have to do? Try to win. Earn points. In some sense, that's what we're trying to do. For a disbeliever, is there any point system? No. For us, is there a point system? Absolutely. Which means, because we understand this point system, that we have no time for, and we have not enough interest in what? Those games. Because we're involved in something which has much higher stakes. Much higher points. Subhanallah. You didn't create this without purpose. There is no way that you gave me this whole life and all of my experiences and none of them are worth anything. They're not worth any points, which is why I have to go somewhere that gives me fake points. مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Subhanak, you are way above that. You would not create something useless. Subhanak. By the way, let's take that game analogy a little further. If you ever get a video game that actually has no goals, it's a free open world. It's a free open world. You ever have that when you beat a video game? And they let you just free roam? Right? You can do whatever you want. Is it as enjoyable? And you might do that for a little bit, but you know what you're going to do pretty soon? Pretty soon, what are you going to do? You're going to stop playing that game. You will lose interest. Why? There are no points anymore. There's no accomplishment anymore. There's no sense of adventure anymore. All of it's gone. Some people are so obsessed with the game, they're like, no, I'm going to keep playing. I don't want it to end. The credits are rolling and a depression is setting in. So after the credits are done rolling and the character comes back and the game is back on, we're like, okay, let me see if it feels as good still. I'll beat up some guys, I'll beat up some more guys, then I'll beat up some more guys, then I'll drive a car, and then I'll sail a ship or whatever. But it does not feel as good, does it? Not as it did when you played the game. So eventually, what do? You quit. You have people in this life, when they start believing this life has no purpose, there are no points, it has no meaning, guess what comes next? Suicide. They give up on their life. And even if they don't give up on their life by suicide, they live a life of sadness and depression because nothing is meaningful. Nothing is meaningful. It's a really sad way to live. Remember that genre of music I was telling you about? Allah helped us get out of that genre, that mindset. When this thoughtful person reached the conclusion, Master, you did not create this without purpose. There is a real purpose. You are above that, subhanak. You are way too perfect to do something that doesn't have a purpose. فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Then protect us from the punishment of the fire. In other words, don't let us lose in this game of life. Don't let this game lose. We can't afford to lose. Now that you realize this is about points and there is a purpose, that means if you didn't fulfill the purpose, there will be punishment. So this guy the person being described in these ayat, hasn't even met a prophet, hasn't learned the teachings of Islam. He's just thought about it. And he came to the conclusion that this life has a purpose, and if it does, and I don't fulfill that purpose, then there's going to be hell to pay. فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ مَنْ تُدْخِلِ النَّارَ فَقَدْ أَخْزَيْتَهُ. Whoever you enter into the fire, Master, you've humiliated that person. وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. And wrongdoers have no aids whatsoever. رَبَّنَا. Now this person's already reached this conclusion that life has to have a purpose. There has to be something more. There is an afterlife. He's thought about this and he's reached this conclusion. By the way, this conclusion was only a result of his mind or his heart and his mind? His heart and his mind. So now that he reached this conclusion, he's seeking out what that purpose could be. He's seeking it out. He's looking, what could give me that purpose? I met a fellow, he's a little bit older than I am, just a little bit. He's 72. He lives in Las Vegas. And he's an eccentric one, mashallah. Brother Yunus, he traveled all over the world. He was raised by a family that doesn't really believe in religion. And he himself was very philosophical. He studied a lot of philosophy and stuff and realized at the end of the day, there has to be a truth. And I need to find it. So I want to learn about Buddhism. So he goes to China. I want to learn about Taoism. I want to learn about Christianity. I want to learn about Catholicism. He goes to the Vatican. He goes to Tel Aviv to learn about Judaism. He travels the world just seeking. And then he finally comes back home in Las Vegas. And he has a friend who's Muslim in Las Vegas. He traveled the world and found Islam in Las Vegas. He became Muslim. So it found purpose. This is what I've been looking for. When he describes his story, he says, that's what I've been looking for. Subhanallah. Now, with that in mind, read the next ayah. رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا سَمِعْنَا مُنَادِيًا يُنَادِي لِلْإِيمَانِ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ فَآمَنَا. Master, we heard the call of somebody calling. Somebody was making a call, calling people to believe. Calling people to believe. يُنَادِي لِلْإِيمَانِ, calling to faith. أَنْ آمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ, that you should believe in your Master. فَآمَنَّا, therefore we've come to believe. I had already reached all of those conclusions. There is a Master, there is a purpose in life. Then I found someone who's actually calling to the very thing I've been thinking about. And the things he's telling me make complete sense with the conclusions I reached on my own. What I had in my head and what this is, they just line up. What I had inside of me and what is being said outside of me line up. So I've come to believe. رَبَّنَا فَاغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا, Master, then forgive our mistakes for us. وَكَفِّرْ عَنَّا سَيِّئَاتِنَا, bury away our sins from us. وَتَوَفَّنَا مَعَ الْأَبْرَارِ, now this person is ready to die. Wow. He's ready to die. Before this, life didn't have a purpose. But now life does have a purpose. So he realizes life will come to an end, but that won't be the end, because there is a higher purpose. So he says, Ya Allah, just when you do take me among the winners, okay? I want to be counted among the winners, not the losers. Take me among the good people. Tawaffana ma'al abrar. Subhanallah. These are the conclusions of a believer when he reaches Islam. Now here I want to tell you something about you guys, because you guys are a scary bunch. You're a scary bunch, I myself included. There are people who come to Islam, isn't that true? They come to Islam. And when they read these ayat, man, they cry. Because these ayat tell their story. This is the walkthrough that they went through to come. But for many of you that were born and raised in a Muslim family, why are we Muslim? Most of the time, why are we Muslim? Our parents raised us that way. And sometimes maybe the thought crosses your mind, maybe I could have been Hindu if I was raised in a Hindu family. Maybe I would have been an agnostic if I was raised in an agnostic family. Maybe I would have been a Christian if I was raised in a Christian family. So we perhaps are Muslim only because we are raised in a Muslim family. Maybe for that reason. These guys went through a journey and reached this. You know why I'm telling you this? Because when it comes to believing in Allah, in Islam, you cannot inherit faith. You can inherit a Muslim name. It's good enough. You can inherit a Muslim name. Aqiqah can be done for you. You can learn the Shahada as a kid. That's cool. But real faith in Allah cannot be given to you by your parents. It actually has to be your own. You have to believe for yourself. Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah would say there's no taqleed in aqidah. You cannot actually blindly follow anyone when it comes to being convinced. You have to reach your own conviction. And that is of the absolute importance. If the only reason you are Muslim is because your parents are Muslim, and you haven't reached this conclusion yourself, for yourself, then that faith is artificial. And that faith will not give the right kinds of results. I don't even know if you can call it faith. You have to come to this conclusion. I'm walking you through these ayat because I want you to, even though you're Muslim, alhamdulillah, but I want you to reach that conclusion all over again. You have to reach that conclusion for yourself all over again. You have to think about the skies for yourself, not because I'm telling you. I think about the sky for myself. And you have to think about the earth for yourself. You have to sit and ponder yourself. And you have to reinforce for yourself, what is it that you believe? You know, this is what the Quran is calling to do. Asking people to reflect, asking people to think. What a powerful religion. A religion that doesn't say, just believe. Just believe. If you don't, you'll go to hell. A religion that says, think about the skies, think about the earth, think about God. Come to the realization that there has to be a purpose. Then you hear someone calling, and that call aligns with what you're convinced of inside. Boom. Now you're a believer. That's what you call a believer. This is why the Prophet would say, or he was told to say, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. Tell them, this is my lifestyle, this is my path. I call people to Allah. I call to Allah with insight, with eyes open. People say you should have blind faith. You ever heard the term blind faith? Just believe with your eyes closed. The Prophet is told to say, I call to faith with eyes open, with clear insight. Ana wa man ittaba'ani. I myself and whoever follows me has to have their eyes open. You know when we close our eyes? Let me tell you. When it comes to the laws of Islam, we close our eyes. We just believe. That's it. I don't have to make sense of why is there 5 prayers. Why do we pray 3 rak'ahs in Maghrib and 4 in Isha? I don't have to do that. Because I came to Islam with my eyes open, my beliefs. I came to them with my eyes open, then everything else Allah wants me to do, I don't have to be convinced of anymore because I'm already convinced of Him. I'm already convinced that He's perfect, so everything He asked me to do must be perfect. In other words, Islam does not, this is a really important point, Islam does not want you to make logical sense out of every rule. That's actually incorrect. That is not what Islam wants. And that's not what Islam does either. Islam will not give you a logical explanation for 5 prayers. It will not give you a logical explanation for 2.5% zakat or zabiha meat or whatever else. If somebody says zabiha is really good because the blood gets drained, it's a healthier way, it's a more humane way of killing an animal. All of those may be true, but that is not why it's halal. The reason it's halal is why? Because Allah said so. There's no intellect involved here. It's done. Similarly, why is riba, interest, haram, and business halal? In many ways, interest and business are very similar. They're logically almost exactly the same. And here's Allah's reason in the Quran for why interest is haram and business is halal. Here's what it is. Here's how it goes. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Done. Allah made business halal and riba haram. End of story. It's done. He does not give you a logical explanation. Why not? Does Islam ask you to be logical? Does Islam ask you to think? Does it? Yes. About what though? About the big questions. Is there a creator? Do I have a master? Do I have a purpose in life? Does this life mean anything? Is it going to be worth something after I die? Those are the big questions. Is He really a messenger? Is this really a book from God? Those are the big questions. Once those questions are answered and you're okay, you're fine with the fact that in fact He is your God, that is your messenger, this is your book, then whatever the book asks you to do as far as its rules, you are fine with that because you know it comes from a higher power. You know what happens when people ask, how come we pray like that? How come girls have to wear hijab? How come we have to face the Kaaba? When you ask those questions, then these are logical questions. But actually, I, for one, will never answer those questions. If you do ask me, how come, you know what I'm going to say? What am I going to say? Because Allah said so. And you say that to someone, they say, well, I'm not satisfied with that answer. Allah said so. Can you give me some more? I was like, yeah, I'll give you a question, but I'll have to ask you a follow-up question first. Do you actually believe this is from someone the one who created the entire universe and you? This is from someone who created heaven and hell. This is from someone who created you and what is going on inside of you, your body and your soul. This is from Him. Do you actually believe that? Because if you do, then you wouldn't have that question. That's the real question. In other words, you have to understand what the big questions are. Quran is answering the big questions. And once the big questions are answered, everything else is done. Everything is solved. All the confusions are gone. There's nothing else left. The big questions in this man's mind, where you didn't create my life without purpose. There must be some end. You are a creator. You created the skies and the earth. All of this has purpose and meaning. Subhanallah. So now here,